JJ and Alex are deep in Utah strategy and reaction. What the Utes did right and what they need to do better. JJ and Alex, Monday from 3 to 6 on the KSL Sports Zone.
I promise we made that open to this segment before the season. What Utah needs to do way better. I was not trying to take a shot at the Utes there, all right? That was something that we just, hey, what the Utes could do a little bit better. Oh, no, we did not expect they were going to get to that point. If you missed any of what Kyle Whittingham said at the beginning of the hour, you can go back, download the podcast edition of this show, find it wherever fine podcasts are peddled, and you can download it there and take a listen for yourself. Frankly, you can almost hear the head scratching going on at the podium there, because I think not a lot of folks, even including Kyle Whittingham, have all the answers as to what's going on. But that's, of course, let's get into it here. Let's get to our sound roundup. It's that time of the week to break down some of the biggest bites from the conference, and specifically wins and losses. And, boy, the people getting wins and losses is still shocking in this conference, so let's jump right to it.
Big 12 Sound Roundup.
Check 1, 2.
The best bites, cheap shots, and excuses from Saturday's postgame news conferences.
Always got to love the excuses, too. And if you're going to get excuses, it's going to be from the guys who are losing. And Mike Gundy happens to be one of those guys, Mitch, who's losing. And Oklahoma State does not seem to have a lot of answers in sight. But here's what Mike Gundy said after their loss this week, this time to Baylor. Baylor, I think, is what now, 4-4 on the season? And the Pokes are 0-5 in conference play. It is not a good start. One of the forgettable years in Mike Gundy's storied career at Oklahoma State. Here's what he said after the game.
And I told him, we got a few guys that are beat up that aren't practicing very much, that are playing in games, but that's not an excuse. We have to be better than that. And I shared with them that they need to do some soul searching. They need to watch the video and look and give themselves an honest opinion of how they played.
There you go, Mitch. Any answers that you like from Mike Gundy at this point? I don't know if we have any good ones from him now. I mean, asking the kids to do some soul searching, I think he's got to do a little bit himself as the head coach.
No question. I mean, I think that it's just too up and down with Gundy at the podium. You love it when he's a showman and he's bold and he's defending his players. You like that, but it's stuff like this where he's now turning on them and saying soul searching. And look, I love someone who's willing to just be honest and say what's on their mind. I love that about Gundy, but it just feels like too much. And will it get to a point where players are just done going to Stillwater and playing for him? And this is one of those years where, this is the worst season Oklahoma State has had since his first year in 2005. Yeah. They're in danger of losing, their bowl streak, which has been a point of pride for Oklahoma State. So tough look right now, because you felt like what they did against BYU was real progress. But, losing Garrett Rangel in that BYU game was a big blow to them. Alan Bowman had big passing yards against Baylor, but it was another Alan Bowman type day where he gets some numbers, but you still don't feel good about how he played. And the rushing attack was non-existent with Ollie Gordon. So Oklahoma State's a mess, and now you really wonder if they're just going to fold on the season, these players, after a comment like this.
Well, and I think also the other thing that happens is that I don't know how long that equity kind of stays up in town. I mean, these kids, they change so much now, and the changeover is so drastic and so quick that if you're not, I know he's got to play a little bit of that game. That's something he doesn't like to do. He doesn't like to relinquish any of the power to the players. But I'm telling you, it's his way or the highway currently is not really working out there in Stillwater. Here was Sonny Dykes after their win, of course, over. Man, it was a Texas Tech team that I thought we were going to see a little bit more fight out of, but TCU now winners of the last couple in a row after that bad loss to Houston. Then they beat Utah, of course, in Salt Lake, and then they get the win, a come from behind victory with Texas Tech this week at home in Fort Worth.
I thought defensively we played really well. I mean, you look at it, after the turnover held them to a field goal attempt. They got us on the fake field goal, but You can tell our defense is getting better. I think we're playing with more confidence. The offense put the defense in some bad positions, and the defense had their back against the wall at times, and I thought they responded well. And so we just got to continue to play better football together. But, again, like I said earlier, hats off to our defensive players because they just kept battling. They just kept hanging in there, just kept playing and expecting something good to happen, and we were fortunate down the stretch to get that turnover.
I like Sonny Dykes most weeks. I don't know. He's one of those guys, too, that's that was a dude not fighting for his job, but if you're in Texas and you're underperforming year after year after you go unwittingly to the national championship game your first season, then, at some point people start to look at you and go, did you do any of that yourself, or was that just all Coach Patterson leftovers that you dragged into the national championship game? Certainly those questions have come up, but TCU's responded well in the last couple of weeks, Mitch.
What is it about Texas programs in this league? They are just so up and down.
Oh, my goodness.
TCU, Texas Tech, Baylor, Houston to a lesser degree. When you think you know who they are, they have a complete 180. I can't figure these teams out to save my life. And I think that's been one of the toughest things about this conference. And since we started really covering this league in depth last year, I feel like that's a storyline because the Big 12 needs a healthy presence in Texas. They need big-time teams to emerge annually in that state because, the SEC wants to make Texas a SEC ground, and let's call it what it is. They're making significant inroads with Texas and Texas A&M. You need to have these Texas programs level up and represent the Big 12 flag in the Lone Star State. So, it doesn't feel like it's going to be this year because these teams are out of sight and out of mind, and they're so up and down. But you hope long-term these teams, whether it's Sonny Dykes at TCU, Joey McGuire at Texas Tech, they got to get some answers and make this thing where they're putting together like what BYU's doing or Iowa State. There's no reason that these Texas teams shouldn't be doing what BYU and Iowa State are doing. So that's going to be the challenge long term, and I think it's something that's kind of hasn't been discussed enough, but it needs to get fixed soon in this league for this conference to be what it aspires to be as one of the best leagues in the country.
Yeah, but here's my my counter to that, and that is something that you brought up quite a bit, which is, hey, this is BYU, and frankly, it could have been a year that Utah, and of course, they could turn it around at any moment in the next couple of years here, but this is a moment that BYU and Utah could go, hey, look, we could be just the top of the conference. You know why? If these Texas teams and these Oklahoma teams are not going to do it, and these teams that everybody else were picking to win this conference are not going to do it, we'll just do it for you. And frankly, we've got the biggest rivalry game between these two teams in the state of Utah of any of the – don't try to sell the Sunflower Battle or whatever it is in Farmageddon. I'm not into it, man. I'm telling you, the one with the most history, the one with the most juice is that Utah-BYU game. Something tells me we'll have a lot to talk about with that one coming up, of course, in the next couple of weeks as well. All right, let's take another break. We'll come back. Our second hour is going to feature a Utah-Houston game breakdown, and it's not one that you're going to want to hear if you're a Utah fan, but we can break down all the numbers. We can talk about it at length and kind of jump in and see what it was that really went wrong for Kyle Whittingham and his guys. They benched Isaac Wilson. You heard why in this hour, because he just wasn't getting that spark there. They only had a touchdown out of him. But we'll get to that and much more. Stay right here. It's 97.5 KSL Sports Zone, 102.7 FM, KSL News Radio. More to go. Stay with us.